Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams. In today's episode of Lawbrie in Gentleland, Lady Gaga Graham, the Canadian Katie Couric meets Katy Perry, petitioning prom queen putrid padre. Aubriana, the auntie of Adin Ross, the rotten rejected Romeo of Rihanna. Sexy red, spiraling sassy stepsister, the sewer, whose career is now in the sewer. The fake mob boss making music that sounds like manure. He maneuvered the beef with the tiny terrifying Tupac twin, thinking he was destined to win, but the Aubrey assassin got on the Super Bowl stage with a grin, and as the curtains on the casket of the Canadian corpse closed, the Marilyn Monroe ho thought it's time for his record label to be exposed, so he created a massive juxtapose. After telling the world he fed Kendrick the information, he's now filing lawsuits over this same information, claiming his label was complacent in the spread of defamation, and on April 16th, he's drafted a new 130-page lawsuit, so of course we will look through it all, but first like the subscribe button and subscribe to the like button so we could bang the gavel and ball. Now, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, just to bring you guys up to date. I'm seeing all the comments, alright? Oh, Drake pays your bills, rapaholics. Another Drake video. I want to tell you guys one thing, alright? As long as Lawbriana keeps making a fool of himself, the news will be at the top of the rapaholic shelf. I mean, I've refrained from talking about his gambling streams with Adin Ross, the fact that he announced he's going to be streaming once a week from now on. Kendrick really made this man go from self-proclaimed rapper to self-proclaimed R&B singer slash streamer slash sewer. And we got some new videos on the way. I got a Doechii documentary coming. I'm bringing you guys a video about the greatest hip-hop feature runs of all time. I'm going to be peeling back the layers of the long-standing, very one-sided beef between J. Cole and Kanye West. So let me know in the comments what else you guys want to see on the channel besides all the Lawbriana and Kendrick content. But let's get into this brand new lawsuit, Lawgrams and Gentlebreeze. So essentially what we have here is an amended complaint. Essentially, way back in the middle of January of this year, Drake. Kendrick was doing his own thing. Drake filed a lawsuit over the disses that Kendrick concocted, more specifically Not Like Us, claiming that the song incited violence because of lyrics like wop 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 dot f him up. And of course, what Drake claims is the false allegation that he is a PDF and that UMG deliberately published and promoted the song specifically to defame Drake, tarnish his reputation, and devalue his brand in an effort to renegotiate their contract with Drake at a much lower rate than he requested. Now, this birthed the OVHO Courthouse Karen conspiracies. I'm coining that term, alright, because since I've been on Twitter over the last 2 months, I have seen a vile amount of these OVHOs, these Aubrey angels, claiming that Kendrick Lamar and his team have been using bots to artificially boost the numbers and the sales of all of Kendrick's new music, and that's why it's been consistently blocking Drake on the charts. And that is all due to the fact that Drake made that claim in his lawsuit, that Not Like Us was botted with fake streams. Basically envision a massive warehouse of dozens, if not hundreds, of phones all playing the song on repeat over and over and over again to artificially boost the numbers. Drake is claiming that Kendrick did that for 30 million of the streams on the first day of the song's release. And he's saying that UMG, Kendrick and Drake's label, gave the green light for Kendrick to do this, and that's why Not Like Us is as successful as it is today. Now, both UMG and Drake's legal teams have went to court to face the judge, with UMG requesting that the judge dismiss this case entirely, and Drake's team saying, nah, we want to file for discovery, aka we want to rip apart the UMG building. We want all of Kendrick's contracts, all of his interactions with UMG, all the interactions they had with the Super Bowl, the Grammy Awards, to license the song. We want everything to do with the marketing behind Kendrick Lamar, and we want to interview the heavyweights at UMG. UMG claims in private discussions with Drake's legal team that they talked about Drake's team amending the lawsuit, aka refiling it. And in that amended lawsuit, UMG had told the judge that Drake's legal team acknowledged that their allegations about Kendrick botting the song using fake streams was actually fake, and that in this amended lawsuit, they were going to take out all of their allegations against Kendrick using bots. Well, this new version of the lawsuit came out today, so let's review it page by page, every new correction, and see, did Drake's legal team finally admit that there were no bots involved in the success of Not Like Us? And if they admit that, do they even have a case here? Was Not Like Us defamatory against Drake's reputation, or was it all good fun in the heart of the rap battle. Because you know if Drake wins this thing just off the precedent that Kendrick used defamatory lyrics in his song, this sets a brand new standard for diss records in the future, for music in the future, where artists will potentially have to be censored in what they could say because they'll be afraid of facing a lawsuit of their own. It's very rare that the giant corporation is the one that the majority of the public is rooting for in a case like this, but in this case, leave it to Labrie to make the wicked UMG seem like the good guys, seem like the ones fighting the good fight. So, in this new lawsuit, the first new update that we get is actually a table of contents. Just like you're reading a book, Drake's legal team has provided a summary of everything that will be seen in this lawsuit. So it starts off with the overall background, which states that Drake is internationally recognized as a multi-talented rap superstar. I would call him more of an acting superstar, but that's just my opinion. Also, the fact that UMG is a music industry giant. Drake and UMG have a long partnership. UMG has licensing and publishing rights over Kendrick's music. Then it gets into the fact that UMG published the defamatory material. When I say defamatory material, I am talking about Not Like Us, the song, the album artwork, which features a picture of Drake's house with a bunch of pins that are meant to indicate that S offenders live in that residence, and the music video as well. All of those are the defamatory material. Kendrick hitting that owl piñata, in Drake's opinion, is defamation against his character. And in the table of contents talking about UMG publishing the defamatory material, it also mentions that the defamatory material, aka Not Like Us, is false. People believe and repeat the allegations in the song. Drake is the target of violence almost immediately. Drake publicly denies the defamatory material. That would probably be in the Heart Part 6. And that the music video causes more people to believe the allegations against Drake, thinking that the music video makes people believe Drake is a PDF. Hey, that's when you know you got a good piece of art, right? When the music video alone, the visuals can convey a whole message of their own. Shout out to Kendrick and his team for the amazing music videos that he's been giving us consistently. Squabble Up, Luther, some excellent videos. I'm expecting, or hoping at least, that we get a Peekaboo music video as well very soon. I mean, Drake loved that Not Like Us music video so much, he copied it for his Nokia music video. He called it Nokia Like Us. In the table of contents, it also says UMG engaged in a publicity campaign to ensure maximum spread of the defamatory material and deceive consumers. And this is the section that's going to be very interesting, right? Because the publicity campaign is where the whole botting allegation originally was, right? Their campaign to market the song included, in Drake's eyes, the fact that they used bots to artificially boost the numbers. But in this table of contents, we now don't see any of these botting allegations. It says UMG used social media to promote the song and to market its popularity to consumers. UMG granted licenses to promote the defamatory material. That would be, licensing it to the Grammys, to the Super Bowl. They say UMG took other unprecedented steps to promote the defamatory material, and UMG's media campaign successfully spreads the defamatory material to billions. The only thing that seems fishy here is when he says UMG took other unprecedented steps to promote the song. What are these unprecedented steps? Well, let's get into it. So the lawsuit starts off the same way that it did in the middle of January when Drake first filed it, which I find is very interesting. It starts off with a quote from the CEO of UMG, because he was actually roped into a civil lawsuit about Diddy and his freak-off parties, a man by the name of Lucian Grange, who Kanye used to say was Drake's rich baby daddy, and the quote is, "A single lie can destroy a reputation of integrity, and when it takes years to build a reputation, it can be ruined in 5 minutes." He was talking about himself and how, being roped into this Diddy case can ruin his reputation because the allegations were false. Drake is comparing it to his situation and how that one song, Not Like Us, can destroy his reputation in 5 minutes. So anytime Drake tries to tell you that he's still up, all the ops tried to kill him, but he's still here, he's still running things, all you got to do is refer to this lawsuit that his legal team drafted up to get the real truth of how he actually feels. And the lawsuit starts off in this very overdramatic way, detailing the night of May 7th, where an armed assailant drove to Drake's house and hit it with a firearm, which assaulted Drake's security. The next day, there was also another attempted invader of Drake's house, and Drake is trying to tie up all of these incidents to say that this was all because of Not Like Us. Not Like Us was released on May 5th, and these attacks happened on May 7th and 8th. Remember that Drake was still actively participating in this beef, right? He released the Heart Part 6 just a day before these attacks happened, and he was even making jokes on Instagram about how there were all these helicopters flying over his house asking them if they could please go away after the attacks happened. But now he's linking the song's lyrics to these attacks, saying that these people came and attacked Drake's home specifically because of this rap beef, and more specifically because of Not Like Us. Now, here is where we get some corrected writing within the lawsuit, because again, this is a newly filed corrected version of the previous lawsuit. So there's a couple different changes, right? So in this paragraph, he says, the song in question is Not Like Us, performed by Kendrick Lamar. The recording was intended to convey the specific, unmistakable, and false factual allegation that Drake is a criminal PDF and to suggest vigilante justice as a response. The song, the image of the album artwork, and the music video all advance the false and malicious narrative that Drake is a PDF. The lyrics repeatedly accuse Drake of engaging in criminal acts, including by calling him a certified PDF and a predator who needs to be placed on neighborhood watch. The image was designed to reinforce, and in fact reinforces, that PDF accusation by depicting Drake's actual Toronto house covered in the icons that are known to be used by law enforcement as well as public safety applications like Citizen to identify child S offenders' residences online. The video, created weeks after the song became a viral hit, was designed to reinforce the same false factual narrative by, for example, showing images associated with S trafficking and juxtaposing the game of hopscotch with lyrics accusing Drake of quote-unquote trying to strike a chord and it's probably a minor. The lawsuit is not about the artist who created Not Like Us. It's instead entirely about UMG, the music company that decided to publish, promote, exploit, and monetize allegations that it understood were not only false, but dangerous. This is where we get into a tricky rabbit hole, right? Because UMG could clap back with the defense that they were simply doing their job by promoting and publishing their artist's music, aka Kendrick Lamar. And the real issue that Drake has is with Kendrick because he was the one that believes these allegations, or at least wrote and recorded these lyrics. But they might also come back with some receipts showing that there are many instances of Drake engaging in questionable behaviors with women who he should probably, or I should say girls, he should probably not be associated with. But in the lawsuit, of course, they defend Drake as not being a PDF. It says, Drake is not a PDF. Drake has never engaged in any acts that would require he be quote-unquote placed on neighborhood watch. Drake has never engaged in S relations with a minor. Drake has never been charged with or convicted of any criminal acts whatsoever. But note that in the lyrics, Kendrick never actually references Drake by name when he talks about these allegations, right? He says, that name got to be registered and placed on neighborhood watch. Who is that name that he's referring to, right? If you want to get into deep semantics, if you want to say that this song wasn't just for, a rap battle, that it wasn't just exaggerated truth or hyperbole, then it's going to be real tricky trying to pin these lyrics specifically to Drake, because Kendrick never actually directly says Drake is a PDF. He just says, Drake, I hear you like I'm young. But they continue, of course, notwithstanding its knowledge that the allegations were fabricated. Starting in May of 2024, UMG waged an unrelenting campaign to spread Not Like Us as widely as possible. UMG did so because it understood the recording's inflammatory and shocking allegations were a goldmine. Spreading the defamatory material served multiple business purposes for UMG. First, the more people who listened to, streamed, watched, and downloaded Not Like Us, the more money UMG and its executives would make. Second, UMG's Interscope Records owns Lamar's entire back catalog of recorded music. That's interesting. Basically, all of his massive albums, Good Kid, Mad City, Damn, To Pimp a Butterfly, those are all owned by Interscope Records. The leadership of Interscope had every incentive to prove it could maximize Kendrick's sales after only recently persuading him to enter his own direct license for a limited recording commitment of new music. Basically, after Mr. Morale, Kendrick obviously ventured off into his own record label, PG Lang. He is going to own his entire new catalog of music, but he's licensing it through Interscope, which is a division of UMG. That's how his new, contract is structured. Basically, he owns the back catalog, but UMG publishes the music. Drake's legal team here is saying that Interscope and UMG had every incentive to make Not Like Us a massive hit, to make Kendrick very happy, to show him, hey, look, this is what could happen if you get us on your team. We'll promote the heck out of your song, and you'll become a massive superstar. They also say that, thirdly, in contrast with Kendrick's first direct deal, UMG's contract with Drake was nearing fulfillment, aka it was almost done. And on information and belief, UMG anticipated that extending Drake's contract would be costly. By devaluing Drake's music and brand, UMG would gain leverage to force Drake to sign a new deal on terms more favorable to UMG. So this is what we were talking about before, right? Basically, UMG and Drake's contract was about to expire. They wanted to re-up the contract, and Drake is saying that UMG thought by making Drake a less valuable brand, by diminishing his brand, they could basically give him less money in their new contract. But how does this make sense, right? If UMG owns Drake's music and they profit off Drake's music, if Drake's brand is devalued and less people listen to his music, UMG makes less money. So in my opinion, this entire argument isn't really based on logical principles, but I guess you could make the argument that they still own Drake's back catalog, like his older music, which is what's really profitable, and that's not going to be affected by his ruined reputation after this beef. It's only going to be his future music, and if they sign a new contract with him, then yeah, they could give him less money because his future music won't make as much because now his reputation is tarnished. He can't sell as much with his new music, but his old music will still continue to sell as much as it used to, so they'll still profit off his older music, but they could give him less money for his newer music, if that makes sense. But this is where it kind of gets funny, right? So they say that UMG's promotion campaign of Not Like Us was successful. The song cloaks cleverly dangerous lyrics behind a catchy beat and inviting hooks. Capitalizing on those attributes, UMG used every tool at its disposal to ensure that the world would hear that Drake, quote unquote, likes him young. This is where it's ridiculous though. They say, unlike any other song ever released by Kendrick Lamar, this song has been played many billions of times, and its false central message has calcified into accepted fact via social media and legacy media channels, broadcast in dozens of languages to, at minimum, hundreds of millions of people spanning the globe. Basically saying that this is the biggest song Kendrick has ever had. He's never had a song this big, even though Luther right now is looking to possibly dethrone Not Like Us as being a bigger hit. But they continue. It's not just fans of rap music who now believe Drake is a certified PDF, because it is not just fans of rap music who have been repeatedly exposed to the song's lyrics. Instead, the recording has become ubiquitous in significant part because of UMG's deliberate efforts designed to accomplish just that. So again, this is the April 16th, 2025 update of this lawsuit, right? The first one came out in January. That was before the Super Bowl and before the Grammys. So what Drake is saying now is because of those two major events, it's now not just rap fans who believe Drake is a PDF because of that song. It's now the entire world, because now Kendrick had the chance to perform it on the Super Bowl stage and the Grammys. So you'll see a lot more references now to the Super Bowl and the Grammys, which Drake couldn't make in the original copy of the lawsuit because those events didn't happen. And I believe this lawsuit initially was filed to stop UMG from licensing the song for the Super Bowl, to stop Kendrick from performing it. But now that he has, Drake is obviously doubling down. And we get some more updates here. Billions of plays and ubiquity were not enough for UMG. Long after UMG knew about the harm that Not Like Us had caused to Drake, and with full understanding that countless listeners have interpreted the song's lyrics and imagery to convey assertions of fact, UMG made significant financial investments and leveraged its professional connections via sophisticated and highly organized publicity campaigns to arrange for the recording to be performed at one of the most significant and viewed cultural events of the year, the Super Bowl. The recording was performed during the 2025 Super Bowl and broadcast to the largest audience for a Super Bowl halftime show ever, over 133 million people, including millions of children and millions more who had never before heard the song or any of the songs that preceded it. It was the first and will hopefully be the last Super Bowl halftime show orchestrated to assassinate the character of another artist. So basically here, Drake is glazing Kendrick, saying that he had the biggest Super Bowl performance of all time, the most watched Super Bowl performance of all time, and he's saying that the whole show was intended to assassinate his character. Now, on a side note, think about how much of a narcissist you have to be to A, think that just because you went to your record label or your rich baby daddy Lucian and cried to him and said, "Daddy, they're all making fun of me. Everyone thinks I'm a PDF now. Please take this song down. Delete it. Even though Kendrick is also your artist, delete it because it's causing me harm." And to also think that entire Super Bowl performance, the Samuel L. Jackson narrative, the Uncle Sam thing, the Great American Game, all the GNX songs he performed, all the hits, the unprecedented way that he actually brought hip-hop to that stage, Drake thinks that entire performance all revolved around him. Vile, narcissistic behavior. But he continues, UMG is legally responsible for the release, publication, and promotion of Not Like Us, including the foreseeable consequences of the same. UMG's business is to, quote unquote, possess the exclusive rights to reproduce, to distribute, and to license music, including over the internet. Moreover, UMG retains the right to refuse to publish works based on content to which it objects, including material that UMG deems to be defamatory. So basically, if UMG gets a song from one of their artists and they think it's defamatory, they do have the right to say, nah, we're not following through. We're not publishing this thing. So in other words, it's only with UMG's explicit approval that Not Like Us could have been released in the first instance and later streamed, shared, performed publicly, and exploited by content creators on TikTok and Instagram. What about YouTube though? I've been playing it for months now at this point. Here they start to talk about Euphoria, saying, predictably, millions of people who listened to Not Like Us or saw the image or video believe the defamatory material to be true. UMG had previously published Lamar's song Euphoria, which was also widely understood to be targeted at Drake and which stated, "Don't tell no lie about me and I won't tell truths about you." As voluminous, I'm not doing edits on this thing, I can't pronounce some of these words. As voluminous public commentary confirms, the average listener or viewer has understood the defamatory material to reflect factual assertions about Drake rather than art or hyperbole. Hyperbole is exaggerated truth, and UMG in their, counter statement are basically saying that the lyrics in Not Like Us are hyperbole. They're not actually supposed to be taken as fact, and the public doesn't actually believe them as fact. They're just exaggerated truth based off the heart of the rap battle. And he continues here, Drake, moreover, the lyrics of Not Like Us leave the unmistakable impression that they are based on additional facts, not disclosed to the listener, but that might be revealed at some future point in time. Basically saying, Not Like Us is essentially stating that Drake is a PDF. The world doesn't know it yet, but he'll be exposed for it very soon. So maybe Drake is doing this whole lawsuit to try to cover up any potential victims from coming forward. I mean, we just heard DJ Vlad say that he's heard that when Drake owned that compound in Calabasas, all those houses where he threw parties down in LA in the Hidden Hills, that there was a lot of suspect things going on and a lot of people were paid off to stay silent throughout those parties. So Drake here is implying that Not Like Us is stating, essentially, Drake is a PDF, the world doesn't know yet, but the truth will come to light. And on a side note about Euphoria, stay tuned for the 1-year anniversary breakdown of that record and the moment when Kendrick first released it. I just put out the 1-year anniversary video of Push-Ups. Suggest you guys check that out. That was a very fun video to make. I'm sure it'll be even more fun to watch. But let's continue. In the words of one commentator, the recording's false lyrics have made it such that everybody believes that Drake loves touching the chords A minor. For censorship purposes, I'm going to replace the word that's meant to describe humans of the age from 0 to 17. I'm going to replace that with the chords A minor. Now, this lawsuit just gets more and more dramatic. He continues going on. UMG's greed yielded real-world consequences, as described above. It was just 3 days after UMG originally published the song that Drake was targeted at his Toronto house by armed intruders in the 2024 equivalent of Pizzagate. The online response was similarly violent and hateful. An avalanche of online hate speech has branded Drake as a S-offender and PDF, amongst other epithets. Public commentary has repeated the false claims that Drake is a PDF and abuser on the level of Weinstein, Diddy, and Epstein, who traffics the chords A minor in shipping containers and harbors convicted S-offenders in his Toronto home. In direct response to UMG's publications, social media users called for the FBI to come at this point for Drake to be locked up and behind bars. The mob-like response to the recording continues to unfold on and offline. At one point in time, flyers were plastered all over Toronto with a photo of Drake and a Canadian YouTuber who was sentenced to 3 years in prison for S-assault with the words, "Canadian S predators gotta stick together." The public response re-intensified following the 2025 Grammys and Super Bowl, both of which featured the defamatory material. Each of these prestigious and high-exposure events introduced new listeners to the recording, causing even more people to be duped into believing that Drake was a PDF. Not only did streams of the recording increase significantly following these two mega-cultural events, but threats against Drake and his family did as well. Now, I'm not here to promote, threatening Drake or his family, but I just find it great that finally Drake admitted that there were no bots involved in Not Like Us receiving a resurgence of streams after the Grammys and Super Bowl. I mean, we saw, again, all these courthouse Karen conspiracy theorists saying on Twitter that Kendrick was using bots to get, all these records broken, breaking the record for the most amount of monthly listeners for a rapper of all time, having over 100 million monthly listeners on Spotify, Drake only having around 80 million at his peak, so breaking Drake's record by a wide margin. All the Aubrey Angels had said that that was due to the fact that Kendrick had bots streaming his songs, faking all these streams. Then we saw Spotify remove all fake streams off any songs off their platform, but no Kendrick song was affected. None of his streams went down, proving there were no bots on his song. And now here in the lawsuit, Drake is finally admitting that the Grammys and Super Bowl helped Kendrick's song Not Like Us and his other music receive a significant increase in the amount of their streams. Now, I have a whole video breaking down the entire original lawsuit front to back, so I'll link that in the description if you guys want to go through the entire thing with me. But in this video, I'm just going to go through the parts that were updated because, again, he updated this lawsuit on April 16th. The original one came out on January, I believe, 15th of 2025. There were a lot of outrageous claims made within it, a lot of drama, a lot of narcissism. So you guys can check that out on your own, but we're going to skip a lot of this stuff and go through just the updated parts in this video. So they go on to focus on the CEO of Interscope Record and his incentive to promote the song. His name is John Janik. So basically, his commission is based 90% on the financial success of Interscope and only 10% on the financial success of UMG generally. So basically, this guy, his main job is to make sure the UMG division, all the artists that are on Interscope Records, that they see a lot of success because their success is his success. Obviously, Kendrick is signed to Interscope. So this division-based incentive structure creates perverse incentives within UMG. John Janik, the CEO of Interscope, and other Interscope executives are incentivized to maximize the financial success of the Interscope labels without taking into account the impact on other UMG labels. For example, through the promotion of Not Like Us and its revitalizing impact on Kendrick's entire recording catalog, including his first 5 studio albums, Interscope and their executives benefit regardless of the effect on other UMG labels like Republic, which represents Drake, aka John Janik, the CEO of Interscope Records. His whole commission structure for his salary is based off of how successful Interscope is, not how successful UMG as a whole is. Drake is signed to UMG through another record label called Republic. The CEO of Interscope does not give two hoots about how Not Like Us impacts Drake's career. He just cares that Not Like Us is a success because that means Interscope and their artist Kendrick Lamar is a success. They don't give two craps about what happens to Drake's career as a result of that. And in this updated case, it says, in a June 2017 interview, John Janik, the CEO of Interscope, responded to a question about the CEO of UMG, Lucien Grange's encouragement of competition between the UMG record labels by stating, "I love to compete. I don't like to lose." So basically, John Janik, he's out for blood here. UMG is fully aware that musical content, including song lyrics, can defame third parties and that artistic expression is not free license to harm others. On information and belief, UMG's standard long-form exclusive recording contract includes a provision which permits UMG eliminate material which, in UMG's judgment, constitutes defamation or libel. So basically, again, if UMG thinks that Not Like Us was defamatory, it says in their contracts they have to, not just that they could, but that they have to remove the song from streaming platforms and stop licensing it because it's destroying the reputation of another one of their artists. And basically that quote-unquote artistic expression is not free license to harm others, aka you can't hurt someone's feelings on the basis of it being artistic expression. And Drake's feelings were definitely hurt. They also note again that the contract between UMG and Drake is up for renegotiation in this year, 2025. And they state that by spring of 2024, UMG understood that the rise of streaming platforms had quote-unquote enhanced the bargaining power of artists. Established artists whose contracts are coming up for renewal are in an improved position to demand higher take rates due to the improvement in the visibility of cash flows and risk reduction. And as described below on information and belief, UMG was incentivized to act and in fact did act in a manner to reduce that bargaining leverage in advance of upcoming negotiations with Drake over contract renewal. aka with streaming being the main way that fans listen and consume music, UMG is very aware that this has caused a massive surge in Drake's streaming numbers, right? Because everyone's going back and listening to his old music, plus he has tons and tons of albums, right? Like triple the amount that Kendrick Lamar has. So his album catalog is getting streamed a lot, which then gives him a lot of bargaining power when he goes and renegotiates his contract with UMG, because he could say, not only are you getting my future music, but with the way streaming is designed, you're now eating off my back catalog, which is a lot more profitable than it was when people were just, going out and buying CDs, because now people are repeatedly listening over and over again to my songs on Spotify and Apple Music. And then he's saying, Drake, that basically UMG thought, okay, well, if we destroy your reputation with this rap battle and with the fact that the world thinks you're a PDF, your music will not get listened to as much. And so when you come back to negotiate with us, we could be like, hey, Drake, I hear you like I'm young, and I hear you're not getting that much money from us. What's also funny is that in the initial lawsuit that Drake filed in January, you know how in Not Like Us, the lyrics, you think the Bay gon' let you disrespect Pac. I think that Oakland show gon' be your last stop. So in the original lawsuit, they actually state that Oakland is where Kendrick Lamar grew up. But in this amended lawsuit, in the corrected version that he just released on April 16th, basically they scratched out that part that says Oakland is where Kendrick Lamar grew up. So basically they finally realized that's not actually where Kendrick grew up. This is also interesting. It used to state in the original lawsuit that Not Like Us threatens that Kendrick could reveal more secrets about Drake when he raps, "The rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promise." But he corrected that to say, Not Like Us expressly represents that Kendrick possesses additional undisclosed information about Drake when he raps, "Rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further." So basically, just like DJ Vlad said about how, a lot of people were paid money to be silent about what went on in the Hidden Hills in Drake's house, all that information would be undisclosed information. And in this new corrected version of the lawsuit, Drake's legal team is saying that Kendrick is implying by that lyric about the rabbit hole that he has himself some undisclosed information about Drake. He also removes the part of the lawsuit that states that he publicly denied the defamatory material, which would be in the Heart Part 6, where he says, I'm not no predator, and whatever he says in that song. We'll do a 1-year anniversary breakdown of that song, but he removed that part from the lawsuit. And that's probably because when UMG requested that the lawsuit be thrown out entirely, they actually stated in that letter to the judge that Drake himself made reference to the fact that he knew Kendrick would use the quote-unquote Epstein angle. That was the one he predicted, and that, he's not a predator, so that he's openly acknowledging in that song that essentially he knew those allegations existed of him being a PDF, and he knew that was the angle Kendrick would take. Now, in this new corrected lawsuit, Drake is removing the claim that he publicly denied all the allegations in Not Like Us, and instead he includes a paragraph that states, Not Like Us's allegations about Drake were understood to be factual assertions against Drake from the moment UMG published it. Whatever generalities might be applied to hip-hop tracks in the abstract plainly did not hold here, as evidenced by the commentary that appeared online and in social and legacy media channels as soon as UMG published the recording and image. Countless posts and comments reveal a widespread public perception that the recording and image convey factual allegations against Drake. So essentially, Lawbreeds and Gentlegrams, he's trying to say here, whatever generalities might be applied to hip-hop tracks in the abstract, so essentially, whenever a hip-hop track is released and fans typically think, this rapper's not really rapping about what they're truly living, this is all cap, that's not actually applied here, because with Not Like Us, people actually did believe Drake was a PDF from the lyrics that Kendrick rapped. I think UMG has a hell of a case, because they're just going to turn this around and say, nah, all these Not Like Us bars about you, quote-unquote, liking them young, they were all in reference to multiple public pieces of information showing you with the chords A minor, showing you in very suspect behavioral situations. Or even in your own lyrics, like Tailor Made, stay tuned for the 1-year anniversary of that song coming in the next few days, where you rapped, "Talk about me liking young girls, that's a gift for me." And he goes on to quote literal quotes from random people online, and he actually corrected the lawsuit to add in new comments that he saw on social media, one of them saying, Drake has more than 800k dislikes on the Heart Part 6 song because everybody believes he loves touching the chords A minor because we have evidence everywhere. The fact that the allegations came packaged in rap lyrics did not dissuade listeners from erroneously believing the allegations to be true. For example, quote unquote, "I love this song. We would have never known Drake is a whole PDF if this information wasn't exposed. Moreover, any reasonable listener would have understood that Kendrick Lamar was claiming to know more information about Drake than he disclosed in the recording lyrics. The public noticed and commented on the unmistakable message. Bro just exposed Drake of running with PDFs and offenders. I don't think Kendrick is dumb to make false accusations. I don't want to assume without proof, but things ain't looking good for Drake. I feel he's still holding some stuff back and ain't saying everything he knows about Drake. He's literally quoting like YouTube commentators who aren't even using proper grammar in this official lawsuit. And he continues, others say, I don't want to be that guy, but I never took Drake seriously. He's Canadian. He was in Degrassi. That stuff makes it hard for me to take him seriously. I thought that's why Kendrick went after him. Now that it's more serious than just Drake being fake, I'm like, wow, if I knew all this, I'd hate Drake too. This is checkmate for Drake because how exactly do you respond to someone calling you a sociopath, a deadbeat, and a PDF? As for Kendrick, I just want to know how he found out some of these things and what took so long to call Drake out. And I mean, if that's really what he's using as proof in this lawsuit to show that this was like defamatory material and it wasn't just hyperbole, it wasn't just exaggerated truth, UMG is just going to clap back and say, where did Kendrick find this information? He got it from your own song where you said, talk about me liking the chords A minors. And he continues with more random comments from fans online, like, Kendrick must truly effing hate Drake for some reason. Makes me inevitably think there might be real merit to the PDF claims. Sorry, Drake. Kendrick is literally making me think it. Talk about winning a rap beef. Many listeners focus on the line, rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promised, as implying that the lyrics were based on undisclosed information. One user commented, rabbit hole still deep, could go further, I promise. Drake waves white flag, ends beef. I wonder what else he's scared about coming out. In response to Super Bowl performance in February 2025, one user commented, rabbit hole still deep, I can go further, I promise, never doubt about this quote ever again. Others drew similar conclusions from the recording's words, like, rabbit hole still deep is wildly appropriate, laughing crying emoji, while fed slowly unfolding Diddy's case and these sick Fs. Rabbit hole still deep, he did not lie. Rabbit hole still deep, in the last diss and with everything Kenny said, no wonder all these things unfolding on Drake now. And so funny thinking of Drake's legal team or Drake himself going and screenshotting these random comments on YouTube being like, oh, look, we really got him now. But then at the same time implying that all of these comments under Kendrick music is just a bunch of bots, right? So which is it? Are these real valid claims that can be used in a lawsuit to prove that, you know, the rabbit hole is still deep? Or are they just bots that are spewing nonsense? Which one is it, right? Completely hypocritical, but they continue. It's entirely unsurprising that the public interpreted Not Like Us's lyrics as assertions of fact. On April 30th, 2024, less than a week before the recording, UMG had released an earlier song by Kendrick called Euphoria that threatened he won't tell truths about Drake if Drake doesn't tell any lies about him, and ominously stated that he knows some stuff about Drake. To the reasonable listener familiar with those lyrics, any future allegations levied by Kendrick against Drake would be based in truth and undisclosed facts. So basically, when Kendrick rapped on Euphoria, don't tell no lies about me, I won't tell truths about you, Drake is saying he was prefacing the fact that everything that would come after that song would basically be truths to Kendrick Lamar, and that UMG releasing it, they were basically stating that we think Kendrick is telling the truth here. They continue, moreover, the image, the album cover art, which depicts Drake's Toronto residence with 13 S offender icons, likewise caused viewers to believe the allegations against Drake. One user asked, who are the 13 PDFs at Park Lane Circle? Other users similarly remarked, just realized the thumbnail is from the S Predators app. In comments on UMG's initial publications of Not Like Us to YouTube, users wrote, hey Kendrick, don't diss Drake, it's a waste of time, just call the cops and snitching. Drake is PDF, so Drake go to jail and you can win. Bye. Thumbs up emoji. So as of now, Drake has not come back with any sort of valid sources for this lawsuit. He's literally just compiled new comments from people online and used that as proof to be like, look, the world really believes Drake is a PDF because of this song. And this continues, saying, the harassment has not been limited to Drake. People with little to no affiliation with Drake have found themselves in the crosshairs. Comedian Tracy Morgan was subject to awful social media scrutiny after posting an Instagram photo of his adolescent daughter with Drake. Users commented, Drake should not be allowed to take pictures with girls. I think he likes them HSH. And as we go deeper down this updated version of the lawsuit, we see that any mention of the Heart Part 6 and how Drake was defending himself not being a PDF in that song, they actually cross out in this new version of the lawsuit. And I believe that's because, again, in UMG's request to get the case dismissed, they said that Drake himself acknowledged all these claims being a valid argument Kendrick could use in the battle because Drake defended himself against being a PDF, and that shows that Drake himself knew about these allegations long before Not Like Us ever existed. By rapping, the Epstein angle was the thing I expected. He expected Kendrick to rap the words he rapped. I stand corrected. He actually did mention the Heart Part 6 later on in this lawsuit, but he does cross out certain things about the Hard Part 6, specifically the quote saying, Drake explains in the Hard Part 6 that he has quote-unquote never been with no one underage and that his name is not on the S offender list. Despite being able to contact Drake, UMG did not ask Drake or his representatives to discuss his denials of the allegations contained within the defamatory material. That part, that sentence, he actually removed it from this updated lawsuit. They also added in, at the time it undertook this promotional campaign on behalf of Not Like Us, UMG understood that winning any, let alone many, Grammy Awards would expose Not Like Us to new audiences, including potentially millions of new listeners around the world, resulting in substantial additional harm to Drake. Basically, the Grammys would really F things up for Drake. Following the release of the nominations, Interscope posted on its Instagram, congrats to Kendrick for the nominations. UMG similarly posted on Instagram. And in December 2024, UMG again promoted the defamatory material's success on the radio on social media when it posted on X. Huge congrats to the UMG fan for landing the top 4 spots on Billboard's 100 Best Songs of 2024 list. Number 1, Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us. And following the Grammys, Interscope and UMG published celebratory posts about the success of the record on Instagram and Twitter. On May 13th, 2024, Ramon Alvarez Smichael, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, Interscope's executive vice president and head of digital marketing, reposted a Twitter post from Billboard charts showing the top 10 Hot 100 songs. Among them is Kendrick's Not Like Us at first place. In a February 2025 LinkedIn post, Jessica Statz, the vice president of international digital strategy of Interscope, shared, "Big week for all of us on Team Kendrick," and linked to a Billboard report on the recording streaming milestones and placement on the Billboard Hot 100. When UMG first acquired its stake in Complex, Mr. Janik, the CEO of Interscope, commented that the partnership will give our artists access to a dynamic network to deepen connections with superfans through unique collaborations and cultural moments. Now, I think this is a stupid argument. They're basically stating like, oh, Interscope and UMG were, congratulating Kendrick on the success of Not Like Us and showing it on their social media. And they're saying that the CEO of Interscope was happy that, UMG buying out Complex would essentially allow fans of UMG's artists to be able to, interact with them more on social media. But if you look at Complex's page, they're posting Drake all the time and they're not defaming his character. They're congratulating him on his success as well, just like they are with Kendrick. Then he goes on here to basically try to accuse UMG of leveraging their connections to make sure Kendrick wins some Grammy Awards for Not Like Us, saying Not Like Us was the biggest winner of the night at the 2025 Grammy Awards on information and belief. Keyword, information and belief, not on any fact, but on Drake's legal team's information and belief. UMG conferred benefits and leveraged existing business partnerships to secure Grammy nominations and eventually wins for the song and its video. During the 2025 Grammy Awards, Not Like Us won all 5 categories for which it was nominated. He has no proof that UMG actually used their business connections to secure those wins. He's just saying on information and belief. I don't know what information and belief that is. He doesn't provide sources, but we'll continue. During the ceremony, defamatory portions of the song were played to the live audience and televised to over 15 million viewers. The song could not have been played and broadcast during the award ceremony without UMG's consent. The original broadcast of the Grammy Awards showed the audience singing along to the song, but in the video of the award ceremony posted to the Grammys YouTube page, that portion is excluded. After the recording won Record of the Year, Lucy and Grange high-fived and hugged Kendrick's longtime executive producer and musical mentor, Dr. Dre, while the song played. On the Grammys' official YouTube page, the clip featuring this high five does not contain the original audio from the recording. So basically, in the video on YouTube showing Kendrick walking up to win that Grammy Award and the whole stadium singing Not Like Us and Lucy and Grange high-fiving Dr. Dre, originally the song was playing in that YouTube video, but eventually they actually removed the audio from it when Kendrick went up to receive the award. Drake is just basically stating that here in the lawsuit. I don't know if he's here to imply that UMG thought, maybe that could implicate them in something, but he performed it at the Super Bowl, right? So what difference does it make if it's in, the actual video that the Grammys published as well? But here he goes on to mention the Super Bowl, stating, just a week later on February 9th, UMG facilitated a live performance of the song during the Super Bowl performance. And again, on information and belief, not on actual fact, but on information and belief, UMG conferred financial benefits on the parties in charge of the Super Bowl performance and leveraged existing business relationships to secure the headliner spot at the Super Bowl. As of this filing, the Super Bowl performance is viewable in full NFL.com as well as on the NFL's YouTube account. So he's implying here that on his own information and belief, he thinks that UMG used their connections to make sure Kendrick would be the Super Bowl halftime performer. UMG promoted the Super Bowl performance on Interscope's social media, including reposting advertisements on TikTok, blah, 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 blah. They promoted the song, congratulations. The version of the recording performed during the Super Bowl performance was modified to exclude the word PDF, but no other modifications were made. On information and belief, Kendrick would not have been permitted to perform during the Super Bowl performance unless the word PDF in the phrase certified PDFs was omitted from the lyrics. That is because nearly everyone understands that it is defamatory to falsely brand someone a certified PDF. On information and belief, the NFL as well as the corporate entities responsible for the televised and streaming broadcast of the Super Bowl performance all understood the word certified PDF to be unacceptable in a broadcast to millions of listeners. Notwithstanding that apparent consensus, UMG continues to publish the song absent the censoring that even Kendrick Lamar deemed acceptable for the Super Bowl performance. So basically saying Kendrick, his whole team, the Super Bowl knew they couldn't mention the word PDFs because that would be defamation. So they replaced that word, right? So Drake is trying to say here, because they removed that word from the Super Bowl stage, it shows that that is a defamatory word and that this song is defamation, essentially. He goes on to then, talk about all the different records that the Super Bowl performance broke, all the views that it got. And he basically says UMG sought out, negotiated for, greenlit, and promoted the Super Bowl performance after filing of this complaint and after months of notice that the allegations in the defamatory material were false, that they were being believed as true by the public, and that they were causing harm to Drake. So basically, after they knew that, Kendrick calling Drake a PDF was false, they still allowed him to perform it at the Super Bowl. The agreement to censor the word PDF failed to cure the Super Bowl performance of conveying the recording's central defamatory meaning. Instead, the Super Bowl performance further solidified the public's belief in the truth of the allegations against Drake. And then he goes on to quote more comments from people on social media saying, "How many people in the world didn't know Drake was credibly accused of being a PDF and now know? Kendrick just cooked Drake in front of the whole world, and anybody who didn't know that Drake is a certified PDF is now probably on Google trying to understand why Kendrick said he likes him young." Last night, before tens of millions, Kendrick lambasted PDFs and called them all out in Hollywood. Love him or hate him, his message was unity. Rap may not be a favorable music genre for many, but his message shredded PDFs like Drake and, more importantly, exorciated P. Diddy and Epstein guilty of heinous crimes. The Super Bowl performance revitalized the public's attention to the allegations against Drake. Once again, members of the public renewed their outrage about Drake being a known PDF. Quote unquote, "They should start an investigation on Drake. Look how Diddy and Epstein turned out." But seriously, though, is anyone actually going to investigate Drake? Users again compared the allegations in the defamatory material to the actions of Epstein, Weinstein, and Diddy, and others called Drake to be unalived. So basically, this update in the lawsuit is essentially trying to say that with UMG greenlighting Not Like Us to be performed at the Super Bowl, it caused a lot more people to believe that Drake is a PDF, even though Kendrick blanked out that word when he performed the song. Now, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, here is what you guys all came for. Here's where it gets interesting, all right? So now we get to the part of the lawsuit that accuses UMG of using bots to increase the streams of Not Like Us, and basically that they paid people under the table to, play the song on radio, get a bunch of fake streams, boost the numbers artificially. So originally, the allegation said, UMG promoted the defamatory material through covert payments to third parties to deceive consumers. Covert payments to third parties to deceive consumers basically means they paid third parties, like, companies that would bought the song or radio DJs to play the song through payola to basically deceive consumers to make them think it's a lot more popular than it is. He actually removed the part that said payments to third parties, and he changed it to UMG promoted the defamatory material through covert means to deceive consumers. That's a very general statement, right? He's just saying there were covert means to promote the song, not necessarily that they paid any third party specifically. And then there was a whole claim that said UMG caused third parties to fake streams. And they actually blanked that part out of this new lawsuit, and they corrected it saying, on information and belief. Again, not actual proof. Information and belief means that Drake's legal team has gotten, some sort of rumors, some sort of gossip, some sort of information, and now they believe, and basically they continue saying on information and belief, UMG directly or indirectly through its agents and making use of UMG resources conspired with, paid, or caused payments to be made to unknown third parties to use bots to artificially inflate the spread of the recording on Spotify. At minimum, UMG was aware that third parties were using bots to stream the recording and turned a blind eye, despite having the power to stop such behavior. So, essentially stating, it used to state UMG was the one who actually paid third parties to use bots to artificially inflate the numbers. He redacted that whole thing to state, on the information and belief that we had, at the bare minimum, UMG was aware that third parties were botting the song and they turned a blind eye to it. So it went from, as a fact, UMG was botting the song to, at the minimum, UMG could have known that there were potential bots on the song and they still turned a blind eye to it. Now, I just want to make things clear to you guys, right? Anyone can bot anything, right? I could go on my YouTube video right now and pay for a bunch of bot comments. I could hypothetically pay someone who does botting on Spotify to go add a bunch of fake streams to Not Like Us. It would be very hard to do so, but it's possible, and Spotify would likely quickly remove them. So the idea that UMG may have known that some bots were involved in Not Like Us and turned a blind eye is meaningless, because anyone could bot anything, and a record label could know that bots were going on. What are they going to do to stop it? They're not the direct streaming platform, right? This makes no difference to the profits that they make. If they weren't the ones botting the song, as far as I know, it's not their job to ensure that no one else is botting the song. And he's not giving any actual proof the song was botted. He's just saying on information and belief. And he actually removes this part of the lawsuit that used to state, one individual whose identity is unknown to plaintiff revealed publicly on a popular podcast that Kendrick Lamar's label paid him via third parties to use bots to achieve 30 million streams on Spotify in the initial days following the recording's release, with the goal of quote-unquote jumpstarting its spread and turning it into a quote-unquote crazy hit on the platform. And this was the basically whistleblower who went on DJ Akademiks' stream to say that he got a payment from Kendrick's manager, Anthony Saleh, from his LLC, his company called Anthony Saleh LLC, for a couple $1,000s to basically add 30 million streams, fake streams, botted streams to Not Like Us on the first day that it came out, to make it seem like it was this huge hit, before it actually became one, right? But this was all basically confirmed to be cap very shortly after. Akademiks said he spoke to executives at Spotify who said it was BS. And if you look at the screenshot that the whistleblower showed Akademiks, it showed that he got a payment from the name Anthony Saleh LLC. If you look it up, there's no LLC with that name. That LLC does not exist, aka this screenshot was likely fabricated because the company that this guy is claiming he got payments from doesn't actually exist. So that is why in this new updated lawsuit, Drake is taking out this entire claim to begin with, right? And this is what everybody was waiting on. The one actual piece of what Drake's legal team was claiming to be proof was the fact that they had this interview between Akademiks and the guy who said that he was paid by Kendrick's manager to bot Not Like Us, right? And that's why Drake had said in the lawsuit that, on information and belief, UMG's Interscope division had used bots on Not Like Us. He completely removed this from the lawsuit, and it now states that at the minimum, UMG was aware third parties were using bots to stream the record. But again, all off only information and belief. He completely removed the only source that he had to show that there was any sort of real proof that Kendrick was actually botting the record. He removed this part too. The whistleblower describes Spotify as the easiest platform to bot because it does not, like other streaming platforms, have certain security measures when it comes to bot protection. The whistleblower further revealed that on May 6, 2024, an individual affiliated with Interscope sent him a payment of $2,500 via the digital platform Zelle, and that he was promised another $2,500 and a percent of the recording's total sales for the initial push. That again was the guy who was claiming Anthony Saleh LLC sent him money to bot the record. Drake completely is removing this from the lawsuit, essentially, emphasizing to the world that he has no actual proof that there were any bots involved in Not Like Us, specifically from UMG. Removed from the lawsuit. The only part about bots right now is that on information and belief, not on actual sources, not on actual fact, but on information and belief, UMG directly or indirectly through its agents and making use of UMG resources conspired with, paid, or caused payments to be made to unknown third parties to use bots to artificially inflate the spread of the recording on Spotify. And at minimum, UMG was aware that third parties were using bots to stream the recording and turned a blind eye despite having the power to stop such behavior. Bots are software programs designed to mimic human behavior to appear to be real social media accounts. Again, he removed the actual source, and now it's all off information and belief, all off BS. He removed the entire claim itself that, quote-unquote, UMG caused third parties to fake streams, and he says that it's only at minimum, he added in this part, at minimum, UMG was aware third parties were using bots to stream the recording and turned a blind eye, despite having the power to stop such behavior. So basically, all the claims about Not Like Us being botted are essentially removed, and it's now all off information and belief that UMG had maybe turned a blind eye to, third parties that were botting the record on their own. Nothing to do with UMG, therefore nothing to actually do with Kendrick's record label. And this is where it gets even more ridiculous, because they say recently Chart Data, which reports on music news, reported that Spotify has been removing botted streams from its platform over the last several months. And we just touched on this in this video, right? They did remove botted streams off of their platform. None of Kendrick's songs were affected, aka if Kendrick had bots on his music, Spotify has just gone on the process of removing bots from all their music, so his streams would have been lowered. They weren't lowered, aka no bots. So I don't know why Drake is even mentioning this in this lawsuit. This is useless information. If anything, it proves Kendrick and UMG's point in that there were no bots on his songs because Spotify did not remove any of Kendrick's streams. And they even continue removing a whole section of the lawsuit that stated UMG offered undisclosed financial incentives to promote the recording. They removed that part. That means basically UMG offered, undisclosed, aka not mentioned to the public, financial incentives, aka money. They offered money that they didn't make known to the public to promote the recording. That claim in the lawsuit is completely removed. They're removing all the claims that UMG themselves actually went and paid third parties to, inauthentically promote the song. And now they quote the Joe Budden podcast, where they state, in June 2024, one podcast host stated, "Not only do I not care that Kendrick used bots, but I know he did." In a podcast clip posted to his YouTube channel on June 23rd, he continued, "Y'all didn't know that Kendrick used bots? You thought that this was just the first time miraculously that a Drake record had more dislikes than likes? Or you didn't know that that was bots? Bots to me was a part of how you win the war versus Drake." Joe Budden here was referring to the fact that The Heart Part 6 had more dislikes on YouTube than it had likes, and he was implying that that was Kendrick's team using bots to put all those dislikes there. But he's not actually bringing proof, right? Joe Budden is just making, I wouldn't say a joke, but just making a generic statement, not an actual fact. And he stated also that Drake plays the same game. Drake also uses bots. So if Drake is going to quote Joe Budden in these non-factual statements he's made, he's also got to quote the fact that Joe Budden has stated Drake plays this same exact botting game himself. Joe Budden is not coming with any actual facts. He's just stating what he's seen in general in the music industry and assuming that both Drake and Kendrick have applied the same tactics. But he continues, adding this new part in to the lawsuit, stating, "Other users online exposed the quote-unquote marketing of Not Like Us through bots and payments to influencers following Drake's pre-action filings in New York and Texas state courts. In subsequently deleted posts on November 2025, a social media user claimed to have knowledge of paid promotion of the song. In response to a comment on Twitter that, quote-unquote, Kendrick was buying promo, the user responded, was buying promo? The user continued there was a slow digital marketer paying to clown the suit, and that UMG would push blame to the digital marketer once the suit takes place after letting the paid promo fly for months. In other deleted posts, the user claimed that paid promo for pushing the lawsuit, Drake's lawsuit against UMG, was already happening and that the alleged digital marketer is psychotic. So basically what Drake has done is removed any actual sources he's had of people who have specifically come forward and said that Kendrick's team paid for bots for Not Like Us, and he's replaced all these claims with tweets from random Twitter users who deleted their accounts that were applying that Kendrick was paying for promo and that UMG knew about it, and that basically they would try to, destroy Drake for filing this lawsuit. And they even continue saying, another social media user posted a video on Twitter claiming to demonstrate how to use a bot streamer for songs hosted on Spotify. In the post, the user claims, this is the streaming bot that UMG and Kendrick Lamar used to bot Not Like Us streams in the beef with Drake. and I used to be a stream farmer, but I've since retired. One of these tweets was a tweet from the Twitter account Poetic Flacco, who I believe is, known to be a pretty big Drake glazer. But anyways, we'll continue. On information and belief, UMG also provided financial incentives to streaming platforms to promote the recording, including by charging Spotify lower than usual licensing rates for the recording in exchange for Spotify affirmatively recommending the recording to users who are searching for other unrelated songs and artists. This is actually a public thing that Spotify offers to all artists. It's called the Marquee Program. You can actually give Spotify lower licensing rates, aka Spotify will pay you less for the profits of your song if they promote it more on their platform. Any artist can do this. Drake can do this. Anyone can do this. This is not like some sort of unethical, under-the-counter promotional tactic. Spotify offers this to everyone. And he added in some more OVHO conspiracies that I've actually disproved on this page. And it says, and since the initiation of this lawsuit, some Spotify users have raised concerns about the recording, aka Not Like Us, appearing in results when searching for new releases by Drake or for other artists. Relatedly, in the following days following the release of Drake's album Some Sexy Sleepy Lullaby Love Songs for You on February 14th, some users reported not being able to find the new release when searching on Spotify. So yeah, I showed you guys in a video months ago that when you search Drake or PARTYNEXTDOOR, or you literally search the word D, the first thing to pop up was Drake, and when you click on his account, the first thing you see was that new album. I looked on Apple Music too. That's the main streaming platform I use. I know I'm a loser for using that, not Spotify, but Drake's face was plastered all over the platform. And still to this day, when you look on the main homepage and you look at the hottest track playlist or the hottest track section, Nokia is the first song there. They're still very much promoting Drake in this whole thing. They even sent Nokia to radio. All these OVHO conspiracy theorists keep coming up with new ways to, or new excuses, I should say, to compensate for the fact that Drake's music is not performing as well as Kendrick's or as well as his old music did. And they're chalking it up to the fact that, Kendrick is overplayed on radio, or they're using bots to, overstream his music. But again, Spotify removed all the bots. None of Kendrick's songs were affected. Drake's Nokia is now being sent to radio. He's receiving the same treatment as any other UMG artist. There's no foul play going on here, and it shows in this lawsuit because the only thing Drake can bring up is a bunch of people on Twitter spewing conspiracy theories with no actual fact or basis to their points, right? And that's why Drake says on information and belief. He doesn't say on actual fact or on actual sources. He says on information and belief, basically on things that we're speculating here. And what's also funny is remember how he actually snitched on a bunch of reaction channels for essentially UMG removing the copyright off of Not Like Us for the first week of its release so that reaction channels can profit from their reactions of the songs. So one of the pictures in the lawsuit was actually the thumbnail of Kai Cenat's reaction video to Not Like Us, which featured the album cover, right? Which was Drake's home with all the S Offender pins. Kai Cenat actually changed the thumbnail to just a picture of him to that reaction video. And so Drake removed, the thumbnail that Kai Cenat originally posted with his house and put the new one. I don't know what that does for Drake in this case, but I just found it funny that, all those S Offender pins were in the thumbnail and Kai Cenat strategically removed them thinking, he might get in some trouble. He even goes on to implicate his greatest glazer, DJ Big Mac of Akademiks, within this updated lawsuit, stating, within days of UMG whitelisting Not Like Us, content creators were thanking Kendrick for lifting the copyright restrictions. Reactors Kai Cenat, No Life Shaq, DJ Big Mac of Akademiks, I'm Dante, and John Denton have confirmed that UMG did not make efforts to copyright strike or otherwise demonetize their video about the song in the initial days following its release. And this pissed me off so much because this was a revolutionary step to actually crediting reaction channels and giving them a viable way to profit off their content, to actually turn their reaction channels into full-fledged businesses by giving them the ability to profit off the songs that they're reacting to, that they're voicing their opinion on, that they're breaking down. You're breaking the boundaries between, the relationship between artists and content creators who talk about music, right? This was a big step forward to helping content creators in a major way. And Drake tried to frame this whole lawsuit like he's fighting for the little guy, right? The underdog who can't afford the botted streams and the major label, promotional tactics, right? He made it seem like he was fighting the big fight for these smaller artists, when in reality, he's just making it harder and harder for reaction channels to now profit off of their content and for people to actually creatively express whatever they feel like. Because now everyone has to walk on eggshells thinking they might get sued over defamatory lyrics. And while he removed all the claims of Not Like Us using botted streams, he does again go on to emphasize the success of Not Like Us, stating that of all the songs published during the rap beef, Not Like Us is the only one that quote unquote broke through the noise and achieved cultural ubiquity. Essentially just emphasizing like this was the only song that achieved like this massive cultural success. And because of that, the judge should look at UMG and say, how dare you guys use this harmful song against Drake to hurt his feelings and hurt his reputation. And he even claims in this lawsuit that his feelings were hurt so much that even he was harmed as a listener of music. This is new in the updated lawsuit, stating Drake was also harmed as a music consumer. UMG's covert promotional tactics and promotion of the success of the song based on those tactics deceived all consumers of music, including Drake. How dare they mess with Drake's Spotify algorithm to show Not Like Us an absurd amount of times? How dare he see his own house on that cover art with all those SFNer pins all over every playlist that he listens to? And we are approaching an hour and 5 minutes, so that's all I got for you guys, man. I went through the rest of this thing. It's just a bunch of repeated BS. We went through all the major new updates of the lawsuit. Essentially, he took out all the claims that Not Like Us was actually botted, all the real sources that he thought he had. He removed them all, and now it's just all off quote unquote information and belief. Remember those words, because on information and belief, I believe that Drake is a massive sore loser that can't accept the fact that this song is a global success. The entire world is chanting that he's a freaky guy, an Ovi ho, and that 1 year ago, Kendrick caused irreparable damage to his reputation, not based off the fact that he proved that Drake is a PDF, but because he proved that Drake is not what the culture's feeling. But let me know what you guys are feeling in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one.